We need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly.
Hey, good morning to you, everybody. I am Brian Wilson in for Chris Hand this morning. You're listening to The Chris Hand Show at 9:07, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am joined in our effort this morning, of course, by Joan Jones in the newsroom and by Mason, who is pushing all of the big blinky buttons so effectively this morning. Want to start out this morning by what I think is going to be the definitive story of the day, and that is the release of the Epstein files is scheduled to happen today. By law, the Justice Department had until today to release all the files. And so, a lot of people are wondering, well, finally, we're going to get to see what's in it. Let's look at some of the reporting that I'm finding out this morning about all of this. Axios says, after years of mystery and months of turmoil, the Justice Department is expected on Friday to release, as required by law, the bulk of its unclassified archive on Jeffrey Epstein. See, one of the things that I fear about all this is a lot of people feel, well, is there anything in the Epstein files? Why are they not releasing it? Well, because some of it is grand jury and some of it is classified. Some of it is now been unclassified. But every time they release a bunch of these documents, and they've released a bunch of them already, everybody looks, well, we haven't seen all of them. We haven't seen all of them. What are they hiding? And I think it's a fair question. Don't get me wrong. But if there are still files that are not going to be released because they say they are classified, I don't know why they would be classified, but if they are classified, then people are still going to say, well, we haven't seen it all. They're still out there. What are they hiding? I don't think it resolves the matter at all, but there will be a lot of people going through these documents. President Trump said, why it matters. No saga has commanded more public fascination than the Epstein files, which destabilized the MAGA movement in a few ways thought possible. President Trump's efforts to close the book on the deceased sex trafficker backfired in spectacular fashion, unleashing a populist wave that ultimately swelled beyond control. The populist wave was, hey, we haven't seen them all. Where are the rest of them? Where are we going to get them? But Congress has forced the hand. They will be released. And so how should we go about this? Because, look, I can't tell you the number of times when I was in Washington that we would have a situation where there would be a massive release of information, a doc dump, as we used to call it. Got a big doc dump coming. I think that we should be very careful about how we look at these documents, because it's not an easy thing to go through it. And there's in the news business, what happens is there's always a demand to get the stuff up before your competitors do. They're still, we want to be first with this. We don't want to be behind the curve. We want to be aggressive and getting the best information to the public. But when you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of pages that have to be gone through, you're doing a fast skim through this stuff. So what I would say to you, first of all, as somebody who has actually been there, the first reporting that you get will not be complete reporting. Unfortunately, what happens in most cases is people will look at the first reports and then they'll tune out and they won't hear the rest of the story, as it were. And so you don't get a complete look at it. I think that's the first thing I would say. Just don't get too wound up about the early reports. And then I found a great commentary by a guy named Ankush Khardori, and I don't even know who this guy is, but I like what he wrote. It was on, I'm trying to see here, Politico. Take it for what it's worth, but it's Politico. He said, here are 5 rules for reading the Epstein files. How to review a mountain of potentially explosive documents like a pro. So, in other words, don't go. First thing you should think about, he says, is maybe you don't want to read them at all. If you're reading this, you might be eager to dive in and rummage around for salacious nuggets of information when they land. But have you ever considered simply not doing that? As an investigative matter, it is a perilous business to pluck information, even something as simple as an email communication, from a large body of material and assume that you can fully understand it. Bingo. Absolutely correct. Before jumping to any definitive conclusions, you would ideally want to review the entire tranche of documents between the individuals during the relevant period. You don't want to when people cherry pick something out of one email without looking at the entire conversation, that's called taking things out of context. So don't do that. Rule number 2, I think, is a very good one. Understand what kind of documents you are reading. Listen carefully here. You want to be smart. You want to be, look at these things with some intelligence. After House Democrats recently released some Epstein emails, one of the more bizarre features was seeing so many people take Epstein's own words at face value. Some particularly seized on an email that Epstein sent to writer Michael Wolff in 2019, stating that Trump knew about the girls and asked Ghislaine to stop. This may or may not be true. You can't take these things at face value. People have motives about the things that they say. Epstein is literally the least credible person on this topic, and at the time he had plenty of reason to put Trump in the blast radius. So in other words, it's important to understand your factual sources, their biases and limitations. Man, that's so good. And particularly important depending on the type of document you're reviewing. The documents are some of the documents that are likely to attract the closest attention are what are known as the FBI's interview memos, known in the law enforcement jargon as the 302s, but you cannot simply presume that their contents are true. These memos are summarizations of what witnesses told the FBI in voluntary interviews, and although you can be prosecuted for perjury, it is difficult in practice to do that. On top of that, people are very eager, for obvious reasons, to point the finger at others and to downplay their own potential involvement in the conduct at issue. They are also free to speculate, which does not stand up in a court of law. Speculation, that's hearsay, speculation. You've heard, I object. The memos summarize the FBI's voluntary interviews, and people have biases, and people can speak freely. Beyond just the facts, they can speculate. So when you look at the 302s, they may look but remember, you have to take at face value, what was the motivation of this person in saying that? And is it a fact that can be backed up by other facts, or is it speculation? You got to be really careful, folks. You can't take everything at face value. Number three, an important thing to remember, there is a difference between being liable for criminal conduct and engaging in embarrassing or morally offensive conduct. The principal purpose of releasing the files was supposed to be reveal the elites who participated in Epstein's crimes but evaded accountability. But already, we are very far afield from that concept. So you may detest, for example, Treasury Secretary Larry Summers or find his sleazy behavior sleazy, but there is no reason to believe that he engaged in criminal conduct. So just a few of the things that you might want to stop and think about as you look at and start to read stories about these files. I would say to you that I think this Epstein thing, for some, I understand the desire to find out. We believe that there was a lot of high-level people who were involved in Epstein's orbit and that may or may not have gone to Pedophile Island, who went on the Lolita Express. I mean, Trump himself has been on the Lolita Express, but there is also evidence to suggest that Trump didn't do anything wrong and that he eventually ended his relationship with Epstein because he found out about some of the things and some of his behavior. So you have to take all of this with a grain. Is it against the law to be on a questionable guy's plane? Not if you didn't know he was questionable at the time. But there are certainly things that no doubt will be coming out that are going to catch our attention. The left's going to be looking for anything that has to do with Donald Trump. But again, I hope that when you see this stuff, that you will take it with a grain of salt and try to withhold your judgment about what these documents reveal until you see the entire thing. Here's the great thing about it is they're going to be released in a way where everybody can dig around in it, but you have to dig around it in a thoughtful way with an understanding of what the documents actually show you and what they do not show you. So, just a little piece of advice. AP, the Justice Department faces a Friday deadline, release its files on Jeffrey Epstein, convicted sex offender, wealthy financier, known for his connections to some of the world's most influential people, including Donald Trump, who as president has tried to keep the files sealed, according to the Associated Press. I don't know if that's true or not. Bowing to political pressure from fellow Republicans, Trump on November 19th signed a bill giving the Justice Department 30 days to release most. That's the thing. That's the word that's going to hang up a lot of this stuff. Most of its files and communications related to Epstein, including information about the investigation into Epstein's death in federal jail. I am very interested about that. I am very interested to know about his passing. And there's a lot of stuff there that just doesn't smell right to me, and a lot of questions that I don't think have been answered about that. So maybe we'll get a little more clarification on the day of his death and some of the things that happened. I think there will be news out of this. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people will cherry pick information and do the things that, for example, if they've got a grudge against Trump, I think they will do everything they can to cherry pick the information and put it out there. And I think there are other people who have motivations to cherry pick information and release certain things and emphasize certain things. I think you got to look at the entire file. I think you have to do it thoughtfully. I think you have to understand that some of the information that is in there, especially these 302 FBI reports, are nothing more than interviews summarized by the FBI agents who did the interviews, but they don't necessarily tell you truth. Yeah, and a 302, there's no cross-examination. It's just give me the facts, ma'am. Give me the facts, sir. That's what they are. What do you know? And they'll ask certain questions, and then they will ask them, do you have any opinion about this? Well, opinion's not fact. Opinion is opinion. So again, I raise the flag here, an important day, an important story, not to be downplayed, but you have to look at this information in a very thoughtful way. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
What investigators are saying today about the man who is suspected of being the shooter in the Brown University and the MIT killings. Also, 3 men behind bars in Sumner County. We'll tell you what they're accused of doing. Those stories coming up here at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning to you, Joan Jones. It's always good to have you there in the newsroom, bringing us, news at the top and the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7. You know, I really think we have a strong news product. We really do. You and Ken Weaver, who will be in a little bit later, man, you just do such a high-level quality job.
You're nice. Thank you.
I'm very pleased to be associated with you guys, and in some limited way. So, have you heard anything about when the Epstein files are supposed to be released? I mean, it's supposed to happen today.
Right.
I can't imagine it happening early in the day. I think it might be late in the day.
I think it'll be just about as everyone's going home, don't you think?
5 o'clock,
Yeah.
The 5 o'clock on Friday release.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, look, if you're leading into the holiday, week before Christmas, a lot of people take that whole week off. And certainly it's an old news media, an old strategy in Washington to drop stuff into the hopper at 5 o'clock on a Friday, knowing that a lot of people go about their weekends, especially during the holidays. They're very busy, probably won't focus on the news a lot. It won't have as much impact. I think you're probably right, probably late today, right?
Also, next week, everybody leaves and vacates Washington, D.C. now until the beginning of next year. So this is a
that's right.
time.
They're gone. If, they'll be out of there. I think it's probably going to be a late afternoon drop is the way it feels to me. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I generally don't like that. I think it borders on what they call news management. We're gonna manage the news. No, just release the information. I think that does not serve them well in most cases when they do that. But one way or the other, we'll be on look for it. And again, I caution everybody. I remember being in front of the Supreme Court for Bush v. Gore, and I was working for Fox, and we had a satellite truck there, and there were filings that were being filed throughout the day before the Supreme Court made its decision. And, these filings are detailed legal briefings. And they're very complex, and they go many pages. And we get a copy of that. And of course, everybody wants to get on the information first. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I'm trying to, they're pressuring me, of course, to get on the air.
Yes.
As soon as, they want you on the air as soon as you can get on the air, because they want to be first with a big breaking story. But you want to make sure that it's right. So I would rather be a little late and be right than to be first and be wrong.
And newsrooms that operate that way are the ones that are normally telling the truth.
So anyway, I started digging into this thing, and I had a guy there that was helping me, helped understand all of the stuff. And all of a sudden, stories started popping up on AP, and these very vaunted and respected Supreme Court journalists who cover the Supreme Court on a regular basis. Yeah. I did not. I covered it occasionally, but not on a regular basis. They were dropping their stories, and headlines were starting to flash, and bulletins were going out. And we looked at it, and we weren't coming to the same conclusion as some of these stories. And so I got on the phone with the people back at the Bureau, because they were, when can you get on? We need you on. They're waiting for you to get on. And I was putting them off because I was trying to figure out which was right and which was wrong. Ultimately, because this is one of my worst days, but it turned out to be an okay day. They said, if you can't get on the air and talk about this, we're going to have to pull you and put somebody else in there.
Whoa.
And I said, I think what you're hearing is wrong. And the word I got back from certain people on high was, these are very respected Supreme Court reporters, and you're not, how do you know it better than they do?
Yes.
And so I said, well, I don't think it's right. And they said, come on back to the Bureau.
Oh, really?
Really. And so they replaced me, and somebody went out there and reported the stuff that everybody else was reporting. And I went back, man, I was just devastated.
Oh,
My
sure,
head,
yeah.
head hanging down low. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we found out I had been right.
Whoa.
There were clarifications that were issued, and I had it right, and everybody else had it wrong. And I never got questioned again.
Ha. See that? I'm glad you did that, and you can still hold your head up high. The others probably just can't.
But that's a little kind of a behind the scenes of what's going to be going on today. Everybody's going to be filing through this stuff, trying to get, the first, and often the first takes are wrong or at least incomplete. That's my take.
Yep.
Anyway. All right. So I've gone over. It's time for you to do the news now.
"9:31 here. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Well, investigators are still hunting for the motive in those two attacks connected to two prestigious universities, both apparently carried out by the very same person.
This morning, the man who authorities said killed two Brown University students and then an MIT professor is dead after killing himself inside a storage unit where he may have hunkered down for days. The body of 48-year-old Claudio Neves Valente was found Thursday night in a storage unit he rented in November. Officials say he was born in Portugal, became a lawful permanent resident of the United States living in Miami, and for a time studied physics at Brown.
ABC's Aaron Katursky there. There's new information about a crash on I-40 last week that claimed the life of one person. Many others were injured. It also closed down the highway in Putnam County. The tour bus driver who caused that accident has now been charged with vehicular homicide. Channel 4's Alexandria Adams.
Investigators tell us the 54-year-old driver was on his phone at the time when he hit another vehicle, causing that crash involving several other vehicles.
Now, the Department of Homeland Security is saying that the 54-year-old tour bus driver is a Chinese national who entered the U.S. illegally from Mexico in 2023 and was released with work papers and a Social Security card under the Biden administration. That man was able to get a commercial driver's license because he had all those documents in the state of New York, despite not being able to read or speak English. 3 Sumner County men are behind bars. They've been arrested for sexually exploiting children. Cameron Maurer, Nathan Gupton, and Bryce Tyler have been booked into Sumner County Jail. The sheriff's office says that they were arrested as a result of 3 separate investigations. That is the latest news. We've got weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
It is 38 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, coming to you from my home studio in bucolic Watertown, Tennessee today. In for Chris Hand. Be here all the way till noon. Then Chad Benson will be in to do his show. It's all straight ahead. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. As we told you, big day on the Epstein files. We're supposed to get those returning to us, and we'll be going through those as they become released. And try to be smart about it, folks. But I want to hit some other stuff that I think is very important for you to know about. Yesterday, the president made a major decision with regarding the reclassification of marijuana from a Category 1 to a Category 3 drug. And here is the president yesterday in the Oval.
Today I'm pleased to announce that I will be signing an executive order to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 controlled substance with legitimate medical uses. We have people begging for me to do this, people that are in great pain. For decades, this action has been requested by American patients suffering from extreme pain, incurable diseases, aggressive cancers, seizure disorders, neurological problems, and more, including numerous veterans with service-related injuries and older Americans who live with chronic medical problems that severely degrade their quality of life.
So here's the thing you need to know. You need to be aware of the fact that, yes, there has been a reclassification of marijuana, but it is not legalization of marijuana in any form, shape, or fashion. This doesn't move that needle at all, although it's something that those people who have been looking for legalization are applauding. This basically says you can use it for medical research in a better way, and you know, a lot of people have been talking about, you know, how the compound, the psychoactive compound in marijuana, THC, can help with pain and nausea and a lot of other things. The president talked about that yesterday as well.
I can only tell you that when you see polls of 82% of the people want this, when I have friends that are really, really sick and they've gone through, I guess you could say, unfortunately, I don't want to become too involved in it because I don't want it happening, but these are people that really know what's going on. Very smart people. This is one of the most successful people in the country and a very brilliant guy. And when they go through this horrible ordeal of cancer or other things, and they realize that this is something that makes them feel better without all of the side effects of some of the drugs where you're just totally knocked out and out of it.
You know, I have been very much anti-pot, have been for years, and was adamant about it, quite frankly. I think my opinion about, you know, how the active compound THC can be used in some medical applications to manage pain and nausea. I have, in my own life, I had a situation where I was involved not long ago in a very painful bout of shingles, which, oh, man, if you've ever been through that, you know that is no day at the beach, and it's painful, and the pain can continue. And I couldn't get the kind of medication that I felt I needed to manage that from my doctors, because they just don't like to give out that kind of medication on a long-term basis. And I get that. I understand why. It's an addiction issue for some people. But what I found is that the hemp-based gummies, which also have a form of THC in it, would help. I mean, it was the only thing that got me through that whole period when I was on the air every day. It didn't impact my performance, but it managed my pain. And so I have sort of slowly come around on that particular issue now, but there are going to be people who want to go to the next step. You know, it's like when you're out there pushing for legalization of marijuana, you take anything that you look incrementally as a win, but here's what's going to happen. From WSMV, a Tennessee lawmaker wasting no time following President Donald Trump's move to reclassify marijuana at the federal level is pushing for cannabis reform in the volunteer state. Our marijuana laws are stuck in the dark ages, overly punitive, out of step with our neighbors, holding our state back, said a Memphis senator. I'm trying to see his name. I can't read it on my copy. I'm so sorry. I'm having trouble with my printer. Everything is dark today. But they're out there making the case. London Lamar, there it is the Democrat who is saying that. It's just going to be the case. Trump, the facts compel the government to recognize that marijuana can be legitimate in some medical applications. That's a pretty good headline summing up this entire issue. And he had a whole bunch of doctors and other people there in the Oval Office while he was giving that. So that is big news from yesterday. There's other Trump news. The Kennedy Center has been renamed the Trump Kennedy Center, and it didn't go over well in a lot of quarters, but that's where it is. The Board of Trustees and the current chairman took a vote, and they made that decision. It was a unanimous vote, but Trump basically put all these folks in there. He did indeed save the institution from financial ruin, and he's working to make sure that the building, it's been there for a while. It's a beautiful facility, but it had sort of fallen on hard times. So he made sure that it was financially stable, that they could make the repairs to the building that they need to do. He has been very instrumental in saving what is really a landmark in Washington and a valued venue for all kinds of stuff. You've seen it on TV, no doubt. But some people over in some quarters are not real happy about that. We'll see how that all plays out. Trump is not ruling out a war in Venezuela. In an exclusive phone interview with NBC News, Trump talked about his offensive against Venezuela, his plan for health care and outlook in the midterms. President Donald Trump said Thursday he's leaving open the possibility of a war with Venezuela. I don't rule it out, no. Trump on Tuesday ordered a blockade, as you know, of sanctioned oil tankers coming and going to Venezuela, increasing the pressure on the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. recently seized an oil tanker captured in Venezuela. There have been some 28 boat strikes. And on that point, I just want to, the president is getting backed up, and I think that this gentleman is correct. You don't find many Democrats who will look dispassionately at things that Trump does, but Fetterman really is that. I mean, I've completely changed my tune on Fetterman. Of all the Democrats, I really like the guy because he looks at things and he doesn't have that gut TDS reaction. He just does. He looks and says, well, and he looks at things thoughtfully. And sometimes he agrees with the administration and is not afraid to say so. He says on these drug boat attacks, the president is well backed up by the law and by good intelligence.
This idea, some things out in the media, it's kind of putting out this that the military is just picking off, any boat that comes across. That's just not true. I mean, there's extensive intelligence, and they know exactly who's on that boat, and they know what's actually on that boat right now. And it's quite frequently they decline to take it and to move on those things. When they move on those kinetic kinds of strikes, they have absolute confidence that who's on it and what's on it, and that's exactly what it's about. They're not just going around randomly just shooting boats in those things. That's just not the fact at all.
Well, I think that's very thoughtful commentary by Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania. We all sort of, when he was going through his brain trauma and still got elected, everybody said, wow, is he up to the task? And he said, I'm going to get better. I will get better with time. And he has gotten better. His ability to express himself and to communicate is a lot stronger than it was when he first took office. And again, I'm finding him to be one of the more thoughtful Democrats in Washington, and somebody who just doesn't have a sort of a quick reaction. Many Democrats in Washington, it seems right now, are just automatically going to be against anything that Donald Trump is for because it's Donald Trump and they have this Trump derangement syndrome. He doesn't have that. And he's thoughtful, and I don't always agree with him, but I find his commentary here backing up the president. Two things out of that. Number one, he's backed up by the law, and that is, by the way, the law was written by, the law that gives him this authority, this is rich, was written by Chuck Schumer. Did you know that? Chuck Schumer wrote the law that gave Donald Trump the authority to carry out these kinds of attacks. You don't hear that being discussed at all. So there's that. I want to end up this segment, though, on Trump about whether or not he can serve a third term. Now, I am of the opinion that he cannot, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer. Somebody who is a constitutional lawyer is Alan Dershowitz. And this will drive the Dems crazy. Alan Dershowitz, the former lawyer of Jeffrey Epstein, has told President Trump it's not clear whether it would be constitutional for him to serve a third term in the White House. Dershowitz, in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, said he gave Trump a draft copy of his upcoming book on the topic during a recent Oval Office visit. He says, look, it's an open question. It's not clear if a president can become a third-term president, and it's not clear if it's permissible. Something that would have to be decided, I would guess, by the Supreme Court. Isn't that interesting? So I don't think he can, and I'm not sure that he would, but at least one constitutional lawyer has said it's an unclear question. There are many unclear questions in the law, but he thinks that's still one of them. 50 minutes now past the hour of 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Coming up, how Homeland Security is responding to the news that the Brown University killer is a Portuguese national. Also, a study that encourages a healthy serving of cream cheese on your morning bagel. That's coming up here at 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, it is 56 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Chris Hand on The Chris Hand Show. So glad to be with you on this Friday as we wrap up the week and head into Christmas week. We've got a few more days to get the shopping done. And I hope you've gotten it all done and hope you have a great holiday. I really feel like there's sort of a religious renaissance going on in America in many ways, and it's very interesting. I think many people are now returning to their Christian or faith values, and so I think Christmas is going to be a little special this year. I've got a big deal going on. I'm actually in a Christmas play at my church, and I'm going to be reciting. If you've ever heard it. It sticks with you. Paul Harvey years ago did a commentary called, it was about Christmas. It was called The Man and the Birds. And I've been asked to do this at my church on Sunday, so I've been practicing and trying to get that down. That'll be a lot of fun. But I really love this time of year.
Have you practiced the last two? Have you practiced the last two words of that?
Say again?
Have you practiced the last two words of that? Treatise that you'll be.
Yes, because in rehearsal I blew the last line, which is the most important line of the entire thing. So I've been practicing that a lot.
Did you do Good Day?
No, I didn't do Good Day.
Okay.
No.
Wow. Brian Wilson, Good Day.
You know what that's all about, don't you? The famous Paul Harvey Good Day.
Yeah.
It really had to do with the clock. Because, you have to hit the top of the clock in network news.
Yeah.
And so he would back time his entire show, but you've got that little thing at the end where, well, maybe I'm 7 seconds from the top of the hour, or maybe I'm 5 seconds from the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So he would end his thing and he would look at the clock and he might have as many as 4 or 5 seconds left.
But he would give a pause.
There'd be a long pause. Good day, and it was right at the top of the hour.
Oh,
so
that's so cool. Good story.
That's what it was all about,
Yeah.
and that was just a little broadcaster thing that he did that became sort of his signature.
Yeah.
Good day. Yeah.
Love that.
My favorite story I've told the story many times. My favorite story about Paul Harvey is that my great-grandfather was a farmer from the old country. I think the old country was Germany. And he had a German accent and a little farm in the middle of Texas. And he would come in from the fields every day, and my great-grandmother would cook a big meal. That was the big meal of the day. And then he would sit down just in time to hear, straight up noon, Paul Harvey news and commentary.
Yeah.
Well, then this thing came along in the 60s where they changed in the summer, daylight saving time came along, and he thought that was ridiculous. He was not going to change his watch. He was not going to change his clock. He was not going to change his habits. The time is the time, and I'm not going to play along with daylight saving time. And there were many people at the time who said they were going to do that. And that all went away the first day he missed Paul Harvey's news and commentary. He turned on the radio and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's listen. Jones got the news now at 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Joan Jones with your top stories, and we're learning more now about the suspect in the attack at Brown University and the murder of an MIT professor. Officials now say it was one man, Portuguese national Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, who was responsible for both shootings. He was later found dead after apparently taking his own life in a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Investigators say a tipster helped to break the case open. Here's ABC's Aaron Katursky.
The tipster told police he saw the suspect inside a bathroom at Brown the day of the shooting, describing the man's clothing as inappropriate and inadequate for the weather and calling the man's skin weathered. Police said the suspect fired more than 40 rounds inside the engineering building. And 2 days later, investigators said the suspect's car was spotted in Brookline, Massachusetts.
Now, the tipster, by the way, is a man named John, who is allegedly a custodian at Brown University and was homeless. So he had been living in the basement of one of the buildings. In the wake of those shootings, Kristi Noem has announced another change to visa programs.
The Homeland Security Secretary announced that they are suspending the visa program that she says allowed the suspect to enter the country. It's a lottery program that grants 50,000 visas a year to individuals from underrepresented countries.
That's NBC's Hannah McLaughlin. Tributes pouring in for NASCAR driver Greg Biffle. His small plane crashing in North Carolina yesterday, killing him and 6 others on board that airplane, including his family. The plane went down shortly after takeoff around 10:15 yesterday morning. The NTSB is investigating. Biffle was an unsung hero after Hurricane Helene hit last year, using his personal helicopter to rescue the stranded and deliver food and water to others. He spoke about that effort with WSMV4.
Those kinds of moments, it's like, that's almost like winning the race. My willingness to jump in and help was just, who is going to go do it if I don't?
Biffle was also active supporting the Nashville Superspeedway's children's charities. Want to stave off dementia? Smear some cream cheese on that morning bagel.
A new study links higher fat cheese and a lower risk of dementia. According to the study, those who consumed about a third of a cup or more of high-fat cheese daily had a lower overall risk of dementia. People who averaged about 1.5 tablespoons of high-fat cream also showed a lower dementia risk. Low-fat dairy showed no clear association. One hypothesis is that cheese is fermented, which produces compounds that may influence inflammation and blood vessels. Experts say further research is needed.
That's ABC's Dave Packard. This is one of those days you don't mind looking at your 401k. The Dow Jones Industrial is right now up 254. The NASDAQ is plus 193, and the S&P is up 46 points. That's the latest news. We've got your weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Good morning, everybody. It is 10:06 on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for Chris Hand. Taking a day off to do Christmas stuff and well-deserved time off, and I'll be here all the way till noon o'clock, filling in the Chris Hand Show. Glad you're with us. I want to talk about the economy because there was a story that largely got overlooked yesterday. And there are, I think, real serious things that need to be discussed regarding this. November consumer prices rose at 2.7% annual rate. Now you say, well, that sounds like bad news. No, that's pretty good news. It really is. It's better than you might expect, and it is lower than the experts had predicted. And so, what does that all mean? Let me just give you the basic information first, and then we'll get into what it means. Consumer prices rose less than expected in November, giving investors hope that inflationary pressures may be cooling enough for U.S. monetary policy to be eased more than Wall Street anticipates. The Consumer Price Index rose at 2.7% annualized rate. A delayed report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed economists polled by Dow Jones expected it to be somewhere around 3.1, so it's better than the experts thought it would be. The monthly increases were also less than on all items, and core CPI gains at 0.2%, et cetera, et cetera. This is the first report that encompasses the period during which the U.S. government was shut down. We didn't have this data available to us because the government was closed for a while, and they're catching up. But see, the Democrats have said, well, the Trump economics and the tariffs, it's going to cause inflation and the cost of things to go up and blah, blah, blah. And they were just adamant about it. This is Trump's economic policies are going to be a disaster, and inflation is going to reappear in a bigger way. You know, what you want, ideally, they say, the economists and the other experts, is about 2%. So it's a tad bit higher than it would be, but not runaway inflation. Certainly not the 9.1% inflation that we had during the Biden years. So I mean, this information that it's not going up, it's actually going down a little bit, just destroys the Democrat arguments that Trump's tariff policies are bad for the country and bad for the economy. Another story, inflation dropped in November, ending a months-long acceleration of price increases and offering relief for households strained by cost hikes. Government data on Thursday showed the reading came in below economists' predictions. The report offered a first look at price increases in nearly 2 months after the 43-day government shutdown impaired data collection. Coffee prices did jump. There's some things that jumped up, but a lot of things are starting to come down. So again, Trump his policies are being proven correct, despite all of the stuff. Here's I think the best story on it from justthenews.com. Trump defies odds and achieves economic triple play with rate cuts, tariffs, and cooling inflation. Trump is defying the dire warnings of economists and the left, who insisted that rate cuts plus tariffs would make a cooling inflation impossible by delivering exactly that trifecta right now. Contrary to conventional economic wisdom and warnings from the critics on the left and many economists that cutting interest rates while imposing broad tariffs would inevitably stoke inflation, the Trump administration is achieving all three simultaneously, with the Federal Reserve lowering rates. That's good. They need to go down more. Significant tariffs in place and inflation cooling to 2.7% as of late 2025. Democrats and economists were caught with egg on their face when President Trump's policies delivered historic job, wage, and economic growth in his first term, along with the first reduction in wealth and income inequality in decades. Here's the thing. Remember how good it was, how good the economy was under the first Trump administration? It was great. And then comes along Biden. Now look at it again. You have to acknowledge that the whole COVID thing really turned the economy into a mess. But his policies were to pump money into people's hands, and as a result of that, inflation ran up to 9.1%. He was a disaster economically, and it took a long time for it to start to come down. And Trump is making, I think, moves that will make, we are poised, I think, for a huge 2026. You know who else believes that? Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and all-around smart guy. He thinks that we are really poised for some great economic news. Here he is speaking after the president's speech before this data came out.
Well, look, I think that we're going to see a choice in 2026 between a Trump boom and the Democrats' gloom. Literally that wide. I think the president's right. And again, I'm a disciple of Art Laffer and others. I believe in supply side economics. You look at the trillions of dollars the president's brought into the country in investment. You look at the trillions he has sold of American products. You look at the impact of the tariffs. You look at the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill and all the different tax changes. I would be shocked if we did not have a roaring economy by July of next year. And I think that's going to wash away an amazing amount of the news media's effort to, frankly, talk badly about America. I mean, the elite media, the Democratic propaganda media, has done everything it could to hide reality. Just take the price of gasoline. When you start having states that are below $2 a gallon, and you think about what people used to say the price would inevitably be, when you see the big auto companies all going back to producing internal combustion engines, because guess what? That's what their consumers want to buy. I see so many good things, but I'll tell you, we've known each other a long time. To watch President Trump give a 19-minute disciplined speech that covered that many facts was worthy of Ronald Reagan. That was a good speech. It was an important speech. Someday people will say it was one of the most important speeches of his career because it set the table for the entire debate over the next year and laid out what Biden did to make the country a disaster, what Trump has already done, and where we are going in general, and why that's the right direction. I think it's a very, very important speech.
I think it was an important speech. And again, that speech was delivered before the data had come out with regarding inflation and all the other stuff. So, look, I mean, the numbers are coming together beautifully. And so what's on the horizon right now? Think about it. The tax cuts will come through. If you are a person who relies on tips as part of your income, you're not going to have to pay taxes on those tips. What a huge thing for a lot of people who are sort of on the lower end of the economic scale, not having to pay taxes on tips. If I were in a tip related job in the gig economy, I would simply say I want to go total tips. Let me work for tips. Yeah, I don't need the salary. I'll have to pay taxes on the salary, but I don't have to pay any taxes on the tips. And then just get really good at what you do so that the tips are really good. I listen, I'm telling you, that will be a huge thing. And then for people who are, in retirement and are taking their Social Security, to not have to pay taxes on Social Security is a huge thing for millions of Americans. So when that starts to kick in, when the other things that are in the big, beautiful bill, we continue to collect the tariffs. We continue to bring in trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of investment into this country as people are, the tariffs serve two purposes. Number one, we get money from people who've been ripping us off for years, like the Chinese especially. But the other thing about tariffs is if you want to avoid the tariffs, the way you avoid the tariffs is to bring your factory back to the United States. There's no tariff on stuff that is built in the United States. So it builds up our economy. It builds up our manufacturing, which had really, really faded over the years. It forces people to come back to this country and invest in this country, and that means jobs. So more jobs. Tax cuts on the way. Everything is sort of in place right now for 2026 to be a huge year. You heard Newt Gingrich say, listen, if things aren't, really rocking by July, I'll be surprised. Now, why is that politically important? Right now, a lot of people, for some reason, still feel like the economy is not working for them. It may be legitimate for them. I'm not criticizing them. If it's tough going out there, I can understand it. A lot of people are struggling, and they really are struggling. But the fact of the matter is, the economy it takes a while for people to realize the impacts of an improving economy. And it takes time, as we say, to turn the battleship around. It takes a while to get the aircraft carrier turned around on something like this when you're making major, dramatic changes in the way the economy operates. I think this is all very positive. I think it's really positive. And many people are nervous about the midterm elections because they feel like Democrats have found a good wedge on this issue that they call affordability. That's why the president's going to be talking about affordable housing today. He's going to be talking about affordable health care today. He's going to be doing all of that because they want to make sure everybody understands we're on it. Just hang in there a little longer. And when 2026 hits and people start getting big refunds, huge refunds from their taxes, when they have more money, when the $1,776 checks that went to every member of the military start to be cashed and people use them to buy products, that helps our economy. All of this stuff is just fuel ready to ignite. This economy is going to be literally on fire by the middle of next year. And that's why I say to all the nervous Nellies in the Republican Party who are worried about the midterm elections, yes, it is true that historically the party in power does not do well in the midterm elections. But what is also true is that people respond to pocketbook issues. And if by July of next year, which is, 5 months before the elections, the midterm elections, things are really rocking and people have money in their pocket, a little jingle in their pocket to go out and invest and do the things they want to do, more money in their pockets, less money going to the government. Everything that I know about economics, and by the way, I believe in the Laffer economics as well, supply side economics, I think it's just everything I know tells me we're going to be rocking, absolutely rocking by July. And that's several months before we actually have to cast a vote in the midterm elections. As I said, the president will be talking about issues of affordability today, trying to remind the American people that we are doing things and things are on the horizon that are going to be helpful. President Donald Trump said he's considering a national emergency over housing, signaling a possible escalation in his push to rein in soaring home prices. This is the big one for a lot of people, making buying a house more affordable. I am looking at it. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. He said his goal is to protect the homeowners who have seen their property values surge, because, I don't know about you, but, I think a lot of my wealth is tied up in my home. And because your home grows up in value, that's called equity. So you don't want to hurt that. But you also want to make it easier for people who are first-time buyers to enter the market. I want to take care of the people that have houses, that have value to the house because they never thought possible. They have sort of made them wealthy and happy, especially in their later years, and I want to keep them up. But at the same time, he said, I want to make it possible for people to buy houses. This president is focused like a laser beam. He's got a lot of things and a lot of irons in the fire, but number one priority for him is always going to be the economy. Because if people are happy and they got money in their pocket and the economy is percolating along and when jobs are up and inflation is down, it will be a good midterm election we have a real record of accomplishment to run on after only 1 year in office in his second term. 20 minutes now past the hour of 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
the Epstein files being released today, and what to expect from your airport experience this holiday season. That and more at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Joan Jones, she'll have the news coming up here in just a few moments at the bottom of the hour. I am Brian Wilson in for Chris Hand. You're listening to the Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I love this story. And it goes well in the Christmas season. More than 30 people have been pardoned by Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, including, and it's the one that's getting all the attention, Nashville native Jelly Roll, pardoned Thursday afternoon by Governor Lee. After thoroughly reviewing the merits of each case, says Lee, I've decided to grant 33 individuals executive clemency. Each individual case is unique and warranted consideration, and I thank the Board of Parole members for their thoughtful recommendations. The decision on Jelly Roll comes just months after Tennessee Board of Parole Davidson County Sheriff Darren Hall recommended a pardon for Jason Jelly Roll DeFord. The singer won multiple CMT awards, a CMA award, and earned Grammy nominations. But according to Associated Press, if you don't know the background, Jelly Roll's most serious convictions include robbery and drug charges. In addition, the rapper turned singer had 2 misdemeanor offenses for driving without a license and possession of drug paraphernalia. He has done a lot to rehabilitate himself and some of the things that, for example, that robbery case, as I recall, the details of it, he didn't actually carry out the robbery, but was in the car when the robbery took place. There was some cocaine, apparently, but all of that has been washed from his record, and it is a good thing. Here's a pretty, I think, comprehensive report from Stacey Cameron over at Channel 4 about all that. He talks about how the fact he was on the phone as Governor Lee made these announcements yesterday morning. A lot of detail I haven't heard elsewhere.
Governor Lee said when looking at the way Jelly Roll had lived his life since getting out of prison, it was evident he deserved a pardon. Now, the Tennessee Parole Board also unanimously recommended the move following a public hearing earlier this year. Now, Jelly Roll finished his sentences for aggravated robbery charge handed down when he was 16 and a possession with intent to sell cocaine arrest that came a few years later. Now, the pardon doesn't clear him of his criminal record, but it will free Jelly Roll from most of the legal consequences of those convictions, like being able to vote, to travel and tour internationally, and to volunteer at nonprofits. Now, recently, the country music star spoke openly about wanting the pardon, hoping it would allow him to own a firearm so he could hunt. But it's still up in the air if Jelly Roll will get that right back as a convicted felon here in Tennessee under state law. Now, news of the pardon was blocked from being released publicly until about an hour ago because the governor said Jelly Roll and 32 other people getting clemency today didn't know about his decisions, and Lee planned to call and tell every one of them, including Jelly Roll, personally. Now, fans of the musician know he's never run away from his criminal past. In fact, he's often used it to fuel his music when writing songs like Save Me and I'm Not Okay. The governor said Jelly Roll's fame played no part in the decision, saying he went through the same process and met the same criteria as everyone else getting a pardon. But Lee did say Jelly Roll's story was remarkable, redemptive, and powerful, citing his charitable work and support of mental health and addiction recovery.
Nice report there, Stacey Cameron from Channel 4. Listen, I think this is great. I believe in redemption. In the holiday spirit, maybe it is time for us to just stop and think about, burying old issues and forgiveness and redemption. And that's all a part of what happens during the Christmas season. We should be reminded of that. Governor Lee, I think, is a good and compassionate man. I really do believe that he looked at each one of these cases and really, he probably, knowing the governor a little bit, I think he probably prayed over these decisions. I think his faith informs a lot of the things that he does. And I think he is absolutely convinced it was the right thing to do to give Jelly Roll this pardon. Apparently, he doesn't have a federal record. It is a state record, and it had to come from the governor, not the president, as I understand it. I also heard him say that he bought a bunch of land wanting to hunt, then found out he couldn't hunt because he couldn't get a gun. So there's a question there still to be worked about whether he can do that and once again own firearms. I hope that gets resolved in a good way. But What a nice note in the holidays from the governor, and good news for some 33 people who got a phone call yesterday from the governor of the state of Tennessee saying, we have decided to grant you a pardon for this mistake that you made years and years ago. It is now time for the news with Joan Jones at 10:30.
I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. The Justice Department expected to begin releasing its Epstein files today. That'll comply with the law Congress passed last month.
The files are expected to be released in batches, with hundreds of thousands of pages coming today and thousands more in the weeks ahead. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says officials need more time to redact information related to victims. Blanche confirms investigations of high-profile Democrats who associated with Epstein are ongoing, as President Trump recently directed. But Blanche says as of today, quote, no new charges are coming.
ABC's Stephen Portnoy there in Milwaukee.
Hands off Dugan! Hands off Dugan!
That's what it sounded like outside a courthouse yesterday before a circuit court judge, Hannah Dugan, was convicted of obstructing federal immigration agents who had attempted to serve a warrant at a courthouse earlier this year. Dugan was arrested after ushering an illegal immigrant and his lawyer through a back door. Dugan had already been suspended without pay. Now she faces 5 years in prison as well. Someone else about to spend time in prison, Jason Jerkins, a Franklin accountant who was sentenced to 9 years in prison for stealing millions of dollars from his clients and committing tax fraud. Jerkins was the owner of Jerkins Business Solutions. He pleaded guilty in July to preparing false tax returns and stealing client funds. He's been ordered to repay those clients about $4.5 million. The Christmas travel season kicks off today. The TSA says it's ready and fully staffed.
We have initiated a lot of new initiatives this year, which we're really, really excited about. Some of those being the family lanes, the military lanes, the shoes on policy.
TSA's Steve Lorenz. The FAA expects today to be the busiest in the skies with more than 51,000 planes taking off. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
It was once said, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. That's what I've tried to do for over a quarter century. Hey friends, it's Aaron Stokes, local owner of Eurofix. We fix European vehicles at below dealer pricing. But what sets us apart isn't just price. It's our deep commitment to quality that keeps you off the tow truck. We have clean, welcoming shops where you can actually sit down. Plus a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection to share with you what's going on. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year, 36,000-mile nationwide warranty on all repair work we perform. Rental cars are available with appointment. 5 locations: Nashville, Franklin, Murfreesboro, Belmead, Mount Juliet. Call us at 844-EUROFIX or visit us online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. Call us today at 844-EUROFIX. 844-EUROFIX. Let's go!
Let's call it 36 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, in for Chris Hand. We're glad to have you along on this 19th day of December, heading into Christmas week. I think for a lot of people, this is a getaway time. I think a lot of people do take the week of Christmas off, vacation time or otherwise. So I think there'll be a lot of activity at the airport and a lot of people on the roadways as they head off to whatever they're going to do the holidays. Hope you've got a good Christmas plan with friends and family, and we'll celebrate the holiday season in a big, big way. Big break last night. In the case of the Brown University shootings, 2 dead, 9 critically injured people, and we were getting there was a lot of concern about that particular case because we didn't seem to be getting much information from the people who were in charge of Brown University and in charge of the investigation. But apparently, they I guess with the good work, police work from the FBI and others, they were able to finally piece it together and find out that not only was the person who carried out the attacks at Brown University identified, they connected him to another murder of an MIT professor some 50 miles away. MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So what was going on? What was motivating this guy? Still unknown. He was found in a storage unit, and he had committed suicide. So here's what we know. First of all, a man suspected in Brown University shooting and MIT professor killing is found dead, officials say. Frantic search for the suspect. This is from... AP. Frantic search for the suspect in last weekend's mass shooting at Brown University ended at a New Hampshire storage facility where authorities discovered the man dead inside and revealed that he was also suspected of killing a Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor, Claudio Neves Valente, 48 years old. A former Brown student and Portuguese national was found dead Thursday night from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and said Colonel Oscar Perez, who is the Providence police chief. Investigators believe he is responsible for fatally shooting 2 students and wounding 9 other people at Brown's lecture hall last Saturday, then killing an MIT professor, Nuno Luero, I believe is the way you say that, 2 days later at his home in the Boston suburbs, nearly 50 miles away from Providence. Portugal's top diplomat said Friday that the government was taken aback by revelations that a Portuguese man is the main suspect in the mass shooting. Let's see. By the way, the MIT professor was also from Portugal. Foreign Minister Paulo Rangel said Portugal has provided very broad cooperation in this particular case. Brown University President Christina Paxson said the suspect had enrolled as a graduate student studying physics from the fall of 2000 to the spring of 2001. He didn't have any current affiliation with the university, and we find out that the suspect and the MIT professor previously attended the same academic program at a university in Portugal between 1995 and 2000. And Loureiro, the MIT professor, graduated from the physics program in Portugal's premier engineering school, according to an MIT faculty page. But what is the motivation? Nobody knows. Nobody has been able to figure that out as yet. What do we know about this man? Okay, this is from CBS. Investigators believe the suspect acted alone. And we know a little bit about him. He's a Portuguese national. Last known residence was in Miami. He studied at Brown 2000-2001 and moved to the U.S. in 2017. Got a green card through a visa lottery program, Homeland Security Kristi Noem said in a social post late Thursday. They also, by the way, shut down that program as a result of this matter, and they're going to be looking at it more closely. We are 100% confident that this is our target and that the case is closed from a perspective of pursuing people involved. So far, the story says, the motive remains a mystery. I understand that. It is baffling why he did this. They will get some information about this. They'll dig around now that they know who it is, and they have a chance to go into his computers and his phone and all of that kind of stuff. I think they really will sort of buckle down on this. Security footage and hotel and rental and car storage unit records apparently helped police in the case. According to Lee Foley, U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, his car was observed intermittently between December 1st and December 12th in the area of Brown University. He'd been stalking the area, casing out the area for some time. The shooting took place on Saturday, December 13th, and then the suspect returned to Massachusetts and attacked the MIT professor on the 15th. Investigators identified the vehicle that he had rented in Boston and drove to Rhode Island. That was the key to getting the identity of the individual and tracking him down. Once you get a name associated with that vehicle, then you can go to his financial records. You can see that he rented a car, he rented a storage unit. You go to check the storage unit, and they find him there dead. No telling how long he had been there. He was dressed in the same clothes that he was seen wearing right after the murder of the MIT professor. We found records with the help of the FBI and others that this was his storage unit. Paxson, Nevis was enrolled in Brown from the fall of 2001, as we said. He was admitted to the graduate school to study in a PhD physics program. He took a leave of absence in 2001 and formally withdrew in 2003. He was only enrolled in physics classes while at the school, which were in the same building where the shooting took place. It was a building that he knew. There you go. I don't know. Kristi Noem says Brown's shooting suspect got his U.S. visa through a diversity lottery program and then announced that the program was going to be paused while they re-examine the case. So pretty interesting. From a national security standpoint, I mean, this is not really a national security story. This is, there's something dreadfully wrong about this man, and I hope that they do find out the motivation. Somewhere he wrote something down. They'll find something in his files. They'll find something in his computer that gives us some sort of eye-opening into exactly what was motivating to do this. But it's clear that at some reason he had a grudge against this MIT professor and had some ill feelings about Brown University on some level. Was it a targeted attack? So far, the officials have said that doesn't appear to be the case. So we'll be watching to see what we learn in the days ahead. It'll be a drip, drip, drip of information. I am, in sort of a related story, very concerned about attacks that could take place over the Christmas holidays. We saw this attack at Bondi Beach in Australia. And that was very concerning. We have broken up. There was a broken up attack plan. There was an attack plan for unloading bombs all over Los Angeles that was broken up by the FBI. Thank goodness. But that one got sort of found and discovered. The question is, with the loose immigration that we had during the Biden years, we know that a lot of people came into this country who do not have our best interest at heart. By some accounts I've seen, it could be 30,000 people could be suspected terrorists in this country. Merry Christmas. There's a warm thought for the holidays, right? So the FBI has been doing a good job in tracking some of these people down. But as has often been said about terrorist attacks, the FBI and our intelligence community has to be lucky every single time, and a terrorist only has to be lucky once. And so I'm a little worried about what might happen during the holidays, and then this adds to it. Paris has canceled its New Year's Eve celebration amid growing security concerns, and they're going to do a televised pre-recorded show on the countdown. The city celebration last year drew 1 million people to downtown Paris, and they just feel like that many people, the combination of mass migration, the event is, according to the folks in France, they've decided that event is no longer considered safe by the city's police, who urge city officials to encourage people to watch the fireworks that will take place from their living rooms. Paris police are vague when citing security concerns, citing unpredictable crowd movements, and offering no further details. Last year, they put thousands of police officers on the street. It is obvious that this is the result of massive, unvetted Muslim immigration into Europe, said Daniel DiMartino, a fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Western Europe has had a terrorism problem for many years, and it has been exacerbated because of unvetted Islamic immigration as a result of the refugee crisis of over a decade ago. A decade ago. Well, doesn't that sound like what happened in the United States during the Biden administration? Unchecked, unvetted people were just streaming across the border. We know that there were millions of people who came into this country who had no contact with the Border Patrol or ICE or anybody. Millions. We don't know who these people are. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're up to. But I can tell you that out of 1 million or so people who came into this country and we don't know anything about, there's got to be a few of them out there who are just bad actors. I have really been concerned about this for a long time, especially during the Biden years. If you ever listened to me when I was on there, I talked about it almost daily. We opened ourselves up to a horrible potential for a terrorist attack in this country. And things have been sort of, I don't know, there's just been a lot of stepping up in this kind of activity around the world. We don't know who these people are. The Trump people are doing everything they can to track these people down. I can promise you that people in this country who do not have our best interests at heart were sent here by other governments. I mean, if you were somebody who hates the United States, a government that hates the United States, and you saw that it was easy to get people across the border, why wouldn't you send a bunch of sleeper agents into the country while that was happening to do your bidding when the time comes? I mean, we would send people into a foreign country just to infiltrate, to get good intelligence in that situation. That probably happened as well. But you know, there are countries out there that do not have our best interest at heart, who would love to carry out an attack on the United States. The Iranians come to mind, and others as well. Why would you not take advantage of the situation at the border to put people in our country to act on your behalf, if you needed them to act on your behalf? Listen, I hope that we have got things under control, but when you see Paris canceling an event that attracted millions of people, you know they're concerned about something. And I hope our folks are on it in a big way, and I hope that I am dreadfully wrong. I hope that I am completely wrong. But I think we have to be very concerned about the holidays and be careful. Keep your head on a swivel if you're out traveling around. 50 minutes now past the hour of 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
President Trump's move to reclassify marijuana federally is sparking calls for change here in Tennessee. We've got that story and more coming up at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Ken Weaver. It's good to hear your voice, my friend.
My big buddy from Texas, Brother Brian.
You talk about being your big buddy, that transitions into what I was just talking about to Mason on the during the commercial break. Tonight, I have my wife's having her Christmas party for where she works.
Yeah,
and they're doing a costume Christmas party. You have to dress up like a Christmas character. And tonight, if you're on Lower Broadway and you see a big, tall guy who's dressed up like Buddy the Elf, come over and say hello, because it's going to be me.
It's so good.
I don't know. I don't know how I got talked into this.
All right.
She came in and said, so we ordered, one of these Buddy the Elf costumes on Amazon. And it showed up the other day, and it's okay. It's not as good as the original, but it's not bad. But the problem that we had was the little booties that they sent, the little leather booties.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to get my big foot in there. No. So she had to make some booties that will sort of slip over my tennis shoes.
All right.
And she made them by hand.
Well, of course.
Out of leatherette of some kind. I don't know.
There's no other way she's going to do that.
Yeah. So they're huge because they got to go over my tennis shoes. She came in here to measure my ankles a moment ago during the commercial break to make sure she got the booties right.
Brian, this is going to be something.
Yeah, I think she's going as Cindy Lou Who.
Oh, right.
I think that's right. And so it'll be a fun thing, and I'm really looking forward to it. But my wife is a dental hygienist, so I'll be hanging out with a bunch of dental hygienists and dentists tonight on Lower Broad, dressed as Buddy the Elf. This is not going to go. I'll be walking down Broadway in big yellow tights.
I can't wait to see pictures of this.
Oh, there'll be pictures. A lot of people would be probably taking pictures, I'm sure.
Oh, man. You guys know how to do the holidays, dude.
I got a little Buddy the Elf hat, a little pointy hat. And I've got a Buddy the Elf belt and a little coat and yellow tights and a wig. I have to wear a wig because, Buddy the Elf has curly hair.
Right. And you got to say things like Buddy Elf did, Brother Brian.
I've got them. Hey, Santa, I know him.
Yeah. You got to say things, too, like I painted a picture of a butterfly.
My favorite, that's one of my, by the way, that is a great movie.
Yes.
Will Ferrell, directed by Jon Favreau, who, regardless of what you think about his politics, is a heck of a director.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, I heard that he and Ferrell did not get along during the shooting of that movie.
Really?
He was offered millions of dollars to do a sequel.
Wow,
and he turned it down because he didn't like Favreau.
Weird.
That's what I've been told. I read it somewhere. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I also heard that, like, James Caan, the scene where Buddy, asks, James Caan's character to come in and tuck him in and then starts wrestling with him. Yeah. I've heard behind the scenes that really pissed James Caan off.
He didn't like it.
He did not like it one bit.
He was sort of a cantankerous fellow anyway. He apparently, at one point, he said he called everybody together and said, well, I know everybody has heard about my reputation. I want you to tell you that I'm going to be on my very best behavior. Because apparently he had a reputation for not being a nice guy on the movie sets. My favorite line.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Ooh, he's an angry elf. That scene, I can't get enough of that scene. Well, listen, I've gone over. I'll let you go to the news now at 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and it looks like the peak holiday travel season is already underway. And if you are driving and you're going to be doing it this weekend, here's something right off the bat you need to know. Drivers in Sumner County, prepare for overnight closures on I-65 US 31 West starting this weekend. TDOT crews going to be setting beams for the new 65 bridge as part of the widening project there. So closures are going to run from 8 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock in the morning starting Sunday, then on Monday and Tuesday. Detours are going to be in place, so allow extra time and check TDOT SmartWay for updates. Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. President Trump's move to reclassify marijuana federally is sparking calls for change in Tennessee. Democratic Memphis State Senator London Lamar says, quote, our marijuana laws are stuck in the dark ages. She argues reform is about freedom, public health, and fiscal responsibility instead of what she calls wasting taxpayer dollars on putting people in jail instead of investing in roads, schools, and health care. She says it's time for the General Assembly to take what she says is a serious step forward on cannabis reform. We'll see what they do when the session starts. Newly elected Congressman Matt Van Epps has been appointed to 2 House committees. He'll serve on the Homeland Security Committee and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Van Epps says these roles will help him work on legislation to protect communities and secure borders. He represents Tennessee's 7th District. And Tennessee to hand over its full voter registration list to the U.S. Department of Justice. The move is part of a nationwide probe into how states maintain accurate voter rolls. Federal officials say the review is required under election integrity laws. Tennessee joins Louisiana and Mississippi in voluntarily complying with the DOJ request. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Together, and do stories on one topic in every segment, and stories that are related, Sometimes, though, you just got to mash them up and squish them together. And I've got a bunch of stories that I think are worth your time and attention that just need to be sort of getting on the record. So excuse me if a lot of this jumps from left to right and all over the place, but I think these are stories you need to know. I'll start out by talking about what will no doubt be the big story of the day, or at least through the weekend if you're paying attention during these holiday seasons. This information is going to be released probably at 5 o'clock this afternoon, 4 o'clock our time, maybe even later. The Epstein files must be released today by law. and at least the ones that are unclassified. Big picture, I don't think this changes people's concern or skepticism that they're getting all of the entire Epstein story, because one of the things that they have said is that we're not going to release stuff that's classified. And I don't know how you solve the problem of leaving people's skepticism that they're getting the entire story, as long as you still hold some stuff back. They're going to say, well, we're not getting the classified documents. The good stuff must clearly be in there. And, people are suspicious because the government has a history of overclassifying things. Things that should be public information, they classify often not because they're particularly sensitive, because they're unpleasant or they're uncomfortable for somebody. So I don't know that we're going to get the whole thing, but one way or the other, come out this afternoon at about 5 o'clock, I'm guessing. I mean, the president's got a noon event where he's talking about lowering drug prices. He's then going to go to North Carolina. I think he's got a speech tonight in North Carolina on the economy and trying to reduce the cost of housing. It won't happen probably until about drive time tonight. So Matt Murphy may have some details on it when it happens. We'll see how that all plays out. I would say this to you as somebody who has been a reporter, who has had to peruse a massive document dump before and find the nuggets of news in it. The early reporting, I wouldn't pay much attention to. I don't think it's going to be all that accurate, because it takes a time for reporters and news organizations to go through thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents to get a sort of a good read on it. The really sad thing about the way the news works is many people will hear the first reports and then they'll tune out. Well, I got the news out of that. I don't need to hear the rest of it. But it really takes several days to get all of this stuff sort of figured out. There will be a lot of stories, and people are going to cherry pick information and to sort of make a case. The Democrats are going to be looking for anything that has to do with Donald Trump, but take a deep breath, let this stuff play out for a day or two. We've waited this long. Let's make sure that we do. And something I would also tell you is, remember that some of these documents contain speculation. The so-called 302 reports that will be included. These are FBI 302 reports. Basically, it's a summarization of an interview they conducted during an investigation. But it's not fact, and there's no cross-examination of this information. It's just people putting their thoughts on the record, and people are going to always put thoughts on the record that are most favorable to their position. And here's the other thing. Although it's a crime to lie to the FBI during these interviews, they very rarely prosecute those kinds of cases. I think that's something. And then the other thing is about 302s is that the FBI allows speculation, your opinion, to be entered in the 302s. Well, the opinion is not fact. Opinion is opinion. And people's opinion about what this may or may not be correct. So you have to take all of that with a grain of salt. Are we ever going to know the full truth and the full stuff? I don't know. But what I really hope comes out of this is more detail about his death in that jail cell, which the reporting on that has been lean. The information that we've gotten about that has been questionable. I don't think we've gotten the complete story there. Maybe something in the file will explain that a little bit better to us. So anyway, big story of the day. I don't know when it's going to drop, but I suspect probably late this afternoon. Here's a story that you're not going to hear anywhere else. You ready? We all know that President Trump is carrying out these strikes against drug boats in the Caribbean and drug boats in the Pacific, and he's had, I think, a tremendous impact on shutting down the flow of drugs to this country in very short order. And the Democrats have lost their minds. Well, he's attacking fishermen. He's not attacking fishermen. Those are not, poor fishermen. Those are speedboats designed to go fast and carry drugs. There's no doubt about it. And, you've got Fetterman out there, John Fetterman, the senator, Democrat senator, saying, I have gone to the briefing and I have looked at the evidence, and he thought that the evidence was quite significant.
This idea, some things out in the media, it's kind of putting out this that the military is just picking off, any boat that comes across. That's just not true. I mean, there's extensive intelligence, and they know exactly who's on that boat, and they know what's actually on that boat right now. And it's quite frequently they decline to take it and to move on those things.
Isn't that interesting? Number one, that he says that they have exquisite intelligence about what is going on in those boats. In other words, they know who's on the boat. They know what's on the boat. They know where the boat came from. This is not just random attacks. Well, that looks like a drug boat. Let's take that one out. No, it's backed up by intelligence. Democrats don't want to talk about that, do they? Listen.
When they move on those kinetic kinds of strikes, they have absolute confidence that who's on it and what's on it, and that's exactly what it's about. They're not just going around randomly just shooting boats in those things. That's just not the fact at all.
There you go. That comes from a Democrat. Conservative commentator Steve Gruber sharply criticized Democrats over drug interdiction and fentanyl policy during recent remarks, arguing that political leaders are prioritizing the wrong concerns while overdose deaths continue to devastate communities across the country. Listen, here's what he said. There is no question that Democrats are on the wrong side because they are focused on the wrong victims. And here's a little factoid that's in this story that you probably haven't heard from anybody. The person who wrote the bill that gave presidents the ability to take out terrorists, and we have determined that these are narco-terrorists, not, who are a threat to our national security. The man who wrote the law that gave presidents that authority, Chuck Schumer. That's right. You haven't heard that anywhere, have you? Fascinating. Fascinating. As I mentioned, I'm going to be all over the place here. What's going on with the attempt to make our nation's cities more secure? Especially closer to home. We know that they've been working to cut crime in Memphis, which had become a hellhole of some degree. Authorities operating under the Memphis Safe Task Force, according to the Tennessee Star, have recorded over 4,000 arrests since the initiative's launch less than 3 months ago. U.S. Marshal Service, the head of the Memphis Safe Task Force, announced that number of arrests made since the initiative was launched. It surpassed 4,000 arrests earlier this week. Now, as of Monday, it was 4,081, 401 gang members arrested. They have seized 629 firearms from people who weren't supposed to have firearms, and substantial quantities of narcotics and related contraband. And they, again, listen to this. You're not going to hear this anywhere. They have actually located 123 missing children, executed more than 1,800 arrest warrants. They're getting it done. Now, you go out there in any community in America where they're having a crime problem, you take 629 illegal weapons off the street. I'm not saying that we should crack down on legitimate weapons, but, I mean, there are people, felons, who are not supposed to have weapons, and they do. They most often always do. And so, it's not the good guys with guns you need to worry about. It's the bad guys with guns, and you take the guns away from bad guys, you make that city safer. You make 4,081 arrests, and you bring them into the judicial system. You are going to improve the safety in that community. You get 401 gang members, you're going to improve the security of that community. So all this 123 missing children, that's an eye-popping statistic. That's amazing. It really was a hellhole, and it's better now. And, you know, when I went through Memphis not too long ago, when all of this was really sort of at its zenith, I noticed, you know, I saw them. They were there. The people that I ran into said, you know, that I've talked to in that area say that they don't have a real problem with it. They're happy that these crackdowns have got. Some people are not going to be happy. But a lot of people are very happy that the city is more secure. Crime rate will go down dramatically. You know, in D.C. they did that, and they were able to, I mean, really, in just a matter of days, make it a much safer town. And one of the things we found out is that the police chief who recently resigned, I think probably got shoved out the door when they found out about it. According to Judge Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, they were manipulating the crime data because they would go on camera and look people in the eyes. Well, the crime data shows that we don't have a crime problem, but everybody knew that they did have a crime problem. And Judge Jeanine Pirro says that nobody in D.C. was getting prosecuted. They get arrested, and then they wouldn't get prosecuted. They'd plea deal it out. They put them back on the streets. They let the case drop. Now they're not doing that. Jeanine Pirro is prosecuting these cases. People are being arrested, and they are facing justice, and that makes a community safer. I think this is a good thing. I'm glad they're doing it. We need to do it in some other cities around this country, mostly cities that are controlled by blue mayors. The Department of Education has released an education report I'm talking about Tennessee Department of Education for 24 to 25 to see where we are. Now, there is a little bit of good news in all of this and a few statistics that still tell me that we have a lot of work to do. And I'll get into that in a few moments. Right now, let's call it 20 minutes past the hour of 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
At least one Tennessee state lawmaker wants the General Assembly to follow up on President Trump's executive order on marijuana. We'll tell you about that and other top stories coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I just love the way he says Super Talk.
Super Talk.
I love that. Super Talk. and then and the way you say the word football.
Yeah, I got that from Michael Del Giorno, man. I mean, he started doing that, and I couldn't stop.
Yeah, I know.
I still haven't stopped.
I know. You've been doing that for a while. All right. We've been going through here this morning to bring you what I would call, stories that don't really go together. One is not connected to the next one. I like to blend them together, but there's just a lot of stories out there that I think are very important, and sometimes you can't make them blend. I mean, I like to think that I'm pretty good at, blending stories. This relates to that, and that relates to that, and there's a thought pattern to it. Yeah. But sometimes you just can't do that.
No.
So you got to shove them all together, squish them together.
Especially in this day and age, Brother Brian.
Boy, no kidding. The Tennessee Department of Education has released its 2024-25 state report card. And there's a bit of good news. They are making some improvements, and the numbers are slowly but surely coming up. And I don't want to be completely negative about this report. Across the state, 355 schools received an overall A grade. 483 received a B grade. And they've been doing that since about 2016. The grades for K through 8 school are determined mostly by achievement growth and growth for the bottom 25% of students. There's a whole lot of things here, but buried in this report is still some very distressing news about the state of education in the volunteer state. Here we go. In addition to evaluating schools, this from the WKRN, in addition to evaluating schools across the state, the report card took a look at student performance in English and language arts, math and science, and social studies. Listen to this. Nearly 60% of Tennessee students, 60%, were either below or approaching proficiency in English and language arts. 60% of people are not reading on level and aren't writing on level. 61% of students were below or approaching proficiency in math. Why can't we fix this? I mean, why can't we come up with a curriculum that forces these students to learn the very basics? You are only as efficient as your ability to express yourself through writing. If you're in the 3rd grade and you haven't figured out how to read pretty well, chances are your entire educational experience is going to struggle. How is it that we no longer have the ability to teach kids how to read? And math, look, I struggled with math all my life, but I think I just have sort of a genetic disposition to not understand math. I really do believe that, and there's some research that suggests that may be true. I'm good on words. I'm good on expressing myself, but word comprehension through the roof. But I can't do math, and that's one thing. But I think for most people, just getting the basics of math. And here's the thing about math: it's fundamentally, and it's like building a wall with bricks. You lay your first row, and you got to get a good fundamental understanding, because the next level of math depends that you understood the level right below it. And if you get lost along the way, then it's really, really hard to catch up. And that's the thing about math. But to be able to read and to write and to do math, everything else ought to be second place to that. That ought to be the priority in every school in the state of Tennessee. Let's get that right, and then the rest of it will all fall into place, I believe. But, some improvement. I don't want to completely trash what's happening in the state of Tennessee, because I think we are headed that way, and it takes a while to turn these things around. But, we've got a lot of work still to do. No doubt, again, these stories, again, just being shoved together. You heard about the crash of Greg Biffle's plane. NASCAR star Greg Biffle and his family are on board a plane that crashed in North Carolina. You may not have heard this. According to the mother of Christina Grosu Biffle, who was on the plane, she got a text, and just before she learned about the crash. And the text was from Christina to her mother, and it said only this: "We're in trouble." And that was it. She said it's very painful, of course, it was a birthday celebration. They were headed to North Carolina. They were making a stop, going to see some friends. They were going to refuel and head to the Bahamas when the crash occurred. Don't know what caused it, but at least she was aware that the plane apparently was having some kind of problems. As long as this is related in some way, government has made a stunning admission regarding that crash in D.C., where the Black Hawk helicopter crashed with a commuter plane and killed 67 people. The government has admitted that it was responsible for that crash. It is 30 minutes now past the hour of 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Time for the news with Ken Weaver.
$11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Heads up, drivers. The Department of Transportation is going to close sections of I-65 and Long Hollow Pike overnight this weekend in Sumner County, starting Sunday night. Crews are going to be setting concrete beams for the new bridge over Long Hollow Pike. Closures run Sunday night through Monday morning from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., then Tuesday night, 8 p.m. to midnight. TDOT says one lane will be open in each direction during the work. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. After President Trump moved marijuana to a lower federal drug schedule, Tennessee leaders might make some changes. At least one Democratic Memphis state senator wants them to. London Lamar says the state's laws are outdated and hurting progress. She's urging the General Assembly to take what she says needs to be a serious step toward reform, which could open the door for medical cannabis in Tennessee. The Justice Department's expected to begin releasing its Epstein files today in accordance with the law Congress passed last month. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has more from D.C.
The files are expected to be released in batches, with hundreds of thousands of pages coming today and thousands more in the weeks ahead. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says officials need more time to redact information related to victims. Blanche confirms investigations of high-profile Democrats who associated with Epstein are ongoing, as President Trump recently directed. But Blanche says as of today, quote, no new charges are coming.
Now, Tennessee is suing Roblox, accusing the gaming platform of failing to protect children. The lawsuit claims Roblox misled parents by promising a safe environment while exposing kids to predators and inappropriate content. State officials say the company prioritized profits over safety even after repeated warnings. Roblox denies the allegations, insisting it uses advanced safeguards and works closely with law enforcement. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Selling your home can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Get a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. There are no showings, no open houses, no stress. Work with the #1 real estate team in the U.S. and close with confidence. Go to markspain.com today.
Hey, this is Pastor Al, and join us on Super Talk 99.7, Sunday evenings from 7 to 8. We're going to look at the news from a biblical perspective.
There used to be some common truths in America. Republicans and Democrats we could all agree that we had to have some semblance of border protection. Now, Republicans and conservatives still want border protection, but the Democrats, the progressives, they want a wide open border. It used to be that Republicans and Democrats could, at the very least, agree that crime was bad and committing crimes was bad, and that the perpetrators of such crimes should, at the very least, be charged and perhaps go to jail after their day in court. Now, you have the Democrats that don't even believe that criminals who are committing crimes should even face charges. Just the basic, what is a man and what is a woman? The basic truth of, look down, what are you? The Democrats don't even have that right.
About 37 minutes past the hour of 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It's Brian Wilson in the chair for Chris Hand. You're listening to the Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7. We're glad that you're with us on this Friday. I think for a lot of people, it's a getaway Friday. And I think, that it's going to be sort of a difficult day at the airport. They're saying be careful. Try to get there early if you can. Between now and I would say Christmas Eve, it's going to be pretty chaotic down at BNA. They've had some problems with traffic. They haven't completed. I was over there the other day picking up my sister. They haven't really completed all the construction of the new roads and everything. I think it will get better, but I think in the interim, you may have some moments. They have suggested that if you are going to the airport, it would be great for you to do sort of an advanced look and to familiarize yourself with what's going on at the airport, and that there are other ways to get into the airport other than coming off I-40. They had a couple of incidents where traffic really backed up, part of it caused by, I think, a wreck, but also, sort of the chaos of a lot of people trying to get in and out of town, where people actually had to abandon their cars and walk to the airport. Or people would, people were driving to the airport. They just got out and started hoofing it. So it can be bad. You would do well to plan for some extra time. You can't show up at the last minute this time of year. I'd like to close out the time that I have left with you here with a series of just bizarre stories. just really, I mean, some of it's just sort of like, wow. Some of it is bizarre and weird. But, you know, we've got a little time here. I'll be talking to Chad Benson in a while. Let me fill it with this. Have you heard this? John Travolta, his son is Elvis Presley's great-grandson. This according to a lawsuit and some details that have come out. Unbelievable. Benjamin Travolta, who is now 15, was conceived via an egg donation from actor Riley Keough, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, according to filings and ongoing litigation against Priscilla Presley. Keough, the daughter of Lisa Marie Presley and grandchild of Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley, received an old Jaguar and $10,000 to $20,000 in exchange for an egg donation that led to Ben Travolta's birth in 2013, according to papers filed by lawyers for Priscilla's former business partners. Who knows? I mean, you've heard weird things, but apparently that is true. There had been talks about an egg donation from Lisa Marie Presley, who would have been in her early 40s, in the early 2010s, to Travolta's wife, the late Kelly Preston, lawyers for Cruz. But that deal went south as Travolta did not want eggs with heroin in them, and they orchestrated a deal where Riley Keough gave her eggs to Travolta so that Kelly could give birth to their son, Ben Travolta. Who knew? How about that? Completely unrelated but unusual news. Behold the power of cheese. Remember that commercial? Cheese is, something we all enjoy during the holidays. Cheese balls, fancy baked brie, or maybe you get a nice cheese basket. Everybody loves good cheese. But apparently, there is new research that suggests that high-fat cheese might really help you in some ways. It used to be told you can't have any fat. Fat is bad for you, and it's not always true what they say about fat. Eating more high-fat cheese and high-fat cream might be linked to, you ready for this, lower risk of dementia, according to a new study published December 17th in the journal Neurology. For decades, the debate over high-fat versus low-fat diets has shaped health advice, according to Newsmax, sometimes even categorizing cheese as an unhealthy food, and said people should limit their intake of cheese. But the study found that some high-fat dairy products may actually lower the risk of dementia, challenging some long-held assumptions about fat and brain health. High-fat cheese includes cheeses with more than 20% fat and include cheddar, brie, and Gouda. Researchers said in background notes, high-fat creams typically contain 30 to 40% fat. That includes whipping cream and something called clotted cream. I'm not familiar with that. The new study, researchers analyzed data from 27,000 people in Sweden with an average age of 58. These folks were tracked for an average of 25 years, during which about 3,200 of them, over time, developed dementia. Participants provided food diaries of what they ate for a week, answered questions about how often they ate certain foods during the past few years, and talked with researchers about how they prepared their food. The research team compared the brain health of people who ate 50 grams of high-fat cheese daily, about 2 slices of cheddar or a half cup of shredded cheese, and to those who let less than 15 grams a day. The people who ate the cheese had fewer incidents of dementia. So enjoy that cheese. Maybe eggnog is pretty high in fat, I think. Get you some eggnog.
Excuse me,
I haven't had any eggnog this year. Got to get that worked in. As long as we're talking about medical news, this is related in some way. Common Supplement delivers breakthrough results against brain cancer. Have you heard this story? There's a lot of people who sort of poo-poo supplements as not being all that valuable. Scientists at the Advanced Center for Treatment, Research and Education in Cancer in India found that a combination of resveratrol and copper dramatically weakened brain cancer in the small group, is a small sample, challenging the long-held belief that cancer must be attacked rather than healed. They conducted the study of 20 brain cancer patients who were already scheduled for brain surgery. That was published in this important neurology paper. The researchers observed major biological changes in the treated tumors, including the near complete removal of DNA fragments that trigger inflammation and sharp reductions in several markers of tumor aggressiveness. Are you ready? Here's the key test here. Tumor growth activity fell about 33%. Cancer biomarkers dropped by 57%. Immune checkpoint signals fell by 41%. And stem cell markers were reduced by 56%. No side effects reported. So it's simple. It's inexpensive. It's non-toxic. Once again, I found this story in foxnews.com. It is a combination of resveratrol and copper. Dramatically weakened brain cancer when they did surgery. I think we are learning as we go forward that there is an awful lot that can be done through diet to impact good health. And we're just beginning to learn more about it. And finally, I've long believed that the truth is out there. And apparently I'm not alone. Americans are now increasingly convinced that aliens have visited Earth. Americans are becoming more open to the idea that aliens have visited Earth, according to a series of polls that show belief in alien visitation has been steadily on the rise since 2012. What happened in 2012? Well, we started to see those videos from the Navy of the Tic Tac and other things. And then you started to see testimony on Capitol Hill after that. And then most notably, there was this documentary that came out lately called Age of Disclosure, which talks to a bunch of government officials who just come out there and tell you, yes, aliens are among us. Yes, we've recovered alien bodies. Yes, we have recovered crashed alien vehicles. And yes, we've been working, as well as the Russians and the Chinese have been working to backwards engineer that technology into something. And we have technology advancements that we keep secret because of that. Now, they'll just come out and tell you that is the truth. And in fact, there's one remarkable claim in that documentary. By the way, everybody that I've recommended watch this documentary walks away with their mouth open at what they have learned. But this story out of that documentary, Age of Disclosure, really caught my attention. It is a scientist by the name of Eric Davis who says he had a very interesting conversation with George H.W. Bush about an incident that occurred back in 1964. Remember, Bush was former CIA director and vice president before he became president.
I had a few private conversations with former President George Herbert Walker Bush in 2003, in which he told me that when he became the CIA director in the Ford administration, he was not briefed on the legacy UAP crash retrieval program, but he later found out about it. And he informed me that there were a number of crash retrievals that had taken place since the mid-1940s. And he also informed me of a UAP event that took place at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964, where 3 UAPs approached the Air Force Base. One of them landed on the tarmac, and a non-human entity deboarded the craft that landed and interacted with uniformed Air Force and civilian CIA personnel. And when he asked for more details, he was told that he did not have a need to know.
Wow. I don't know. I've been fascinated by this topic for years. Is there any story out there that would be a bigger story than We're Not Alone in the Universe? But increasingly, Americans, about 47%, nearly half, of Americans say they think aliens have definitely or probably visited Earth at some point in time. This according to a new poll from YouGov conducted in November of 2025. The percentage is up from roughly 36% of Americans who were polled in 2012 about this by another polling firm. Moreover, people seem to be getting off the fence on this issue one way or the other. Now, just 16% of Americans say they are unsure if aliens had visited the new poll. In 2012, that number was 48%. So Americans are getting more and more information about this from Navy pilots and government officials. People like Marco Rubio are in this documentary, Age of Disclosure. That is, I think, pretty eye-opening. I think opinions are changing, and many people are wondering, will we get official confirmation from government anytime soon? Donald Trump is said to be considering that possibility. Other presidents, including George W. Bush, considered, apparently, according to the documentary, releasing this information back in the day when he was president, and they ultimately decided not to. There are some people who say that there are good and valid reasons, if it is true, that we should not confirm it for national security reasons. Are we in the age of disclosure? Inquiring minds want to know. Coming up in just a moment, we got to take a commercial break, but when we come back, we'll check in with our good friend Chad Benson. You're listening to The Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 11:54 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Brian Wilson in for Chris Ann. Last few minutes here. It's time for the Crosstalk with Chad Benson, who will be coming up next at straight up noon. Chad, Merry Christmas to you. Good to have you.
Merry Christmas, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. We haven't chatted in a while. You doing okay?
I'm doing okay. I'm getting ready for the holidays, getting ready to take a little time off. What are you up to?
Well, I'm filling in for you, apparently.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Filling in for me. You got all kinds of stuff. Are you still the mayor of somewhere? And you're the council member?
I never was the mayor. I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, but my term here in Watertown, and that term has ended officially. And so no, I'm just a radio guy looking for a show now and then.
That's cool. That's cool. So what are you up to for the holidays?
I mentioned it to Ken Weaver earlier. You may have missed this. My wife is a dental hygienist, and she works at a great practice called Franklin Smiles over in Franklin. And they're having their Christmas party. I guess it's tonight. And it's a costume Christmas party. And everybody's really jazzed about it. But you have to show up as a Christmas character from a Christmas movie.
Okay. And you have chosen?
I have chosen Buddy the Elf.
That's a solid move right there.
Oh, actually, I think it was sort of chosen for me.
That's a solid move, though. I could see that.
And I'll be walking down Lower Broad tonight in yellow tights, dressed like Buddy the freaking Elf.
Oh, goodness me. How exciting is that? What is she going as?
I think she's going as Cindy Lou Who.
Yes. Okay.
She'll be wearing them pink jammies.
Cindy Lou Who is now a rock star.
Yeah, with the Pretty Reckless.
Yeah, the Pretty Reckless. Have you heard she did the Cindy Lou song this year?
Yes.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
she said for years she stayed away from it. She downplayed the fact that and then I think Jim Carrey said, "No way, you need to love this, embrace it."
Yeah, embrace it, lean into it. That's right.
She said she finally did, and she went and re-recorded that song she sang, and it's great.
Yeah, well, I've always loved the movie Buddy the Elf. It's one of those that there's two movies I like to watch every year, and I haven't seen the other one. I like White Christmas.
Okay.
With Bing Crosby
Yes, sir.
and Danny Kaye and all of that. There's some great songs in there. And I really love Buddy the Elf. I'll always stop and watch Buddy the Elf, especially the scene where he says, "Ooh, he's an angry little elf." I love that so much.
So
I can't.
funny.
I
love Bob Newhart as his
It's such a
dad.
funny scene. Yeah.
Bob Newhart as his dad is hilarious.
Yes.
Oh yeah. And I was telling Ken, I heard that they tried to do a sort of a sequel to that, and that Will Ferrell wouldn't have anything of it because he didn't apparently get along with the director Jon Favreau.
Yeah. He's that they've tried, because there's so much money sitting out there. And, and you also got to think to yourself, you've got to do it right, because Anchorman was amazing. They came back years later, did Anchorman 2, and it kind of sucked. You don't want to blow it up. And if the problem is, look, they got good chemistry together, working together. So, sometimes that's the way it is. You got to deal with it.
People will go and see an Anchorman 2, or if they were to be Buddy the Elf 2, they would go see it.
Oh, yeah.
Just because they loved the first one so much. But I got to tell you, often I think we are really disappointed when we see the sequels. So I think that's probably a good instinct on his part. It is, in many ways, a perfect comedy Christmas movie. It really is.
It really is. It's got everything. And it's one of those things where the kids can watch it. Everybody gets something out of it.
I like everything about that. I like James Caan. I like Will Ferrell's. I love Zoe Deschanel. It's just to me, if it's one of those things, if I'm zipping through the cables looking for something to watch, and I see Elf, no matter where it is in the show, I just stop and watch it.
That's I've not watched it. What did I watch today? Oh, I watched the greatest Christmas movie of all time today, I think, which is A Christmas Carol with Alistair Sim, 1951.
Best version.
That's the best version.
Wow.
I'll
have to. I don't think that I've ever seen that.
Alistair Sim is the best of all the Scrooges, and he is brilliant in this movie, and it was awesome. It's better than that stupid Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
I hate I hate A Wonderful Life. I think it's the dumbest movie
Where's
ever.
your Christmas spirit?
Oh, come on, Clarence.
Here we go. You ready?
Shut up.
An angel just got its wings.
An angel. Shut up, you angel. Why are you taking an angel to a bar?
Well, quickly tell me what you got on tap today, Chad.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun today. Reddit helped solve a crime along with a homeless guy. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk, I'm sure, a little bit about politics. And I've got a bunch of other stuff on tap that's going to be wacky and wild and fun because we're doing that. It's loose. It's the holiday season.
All right. Well, if you're on Lower Broad today and you see a big, goofy guy walking around, jumping across the crosswalks dressed like Buddy the Elf, come over and say hi, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Give him a hug.
All right. Well, I'll be in for you on, I think, the day before Christmas. So
Right
have
on,
a great
my man.
holiday if I don't talk to you then, okay?
Merry Christmas, my man.
And we'll see you soon.